إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه سبحانه وتعالى ونتوكل عليه ونتوب إليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدى هدى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. We mentioned in the Khutbah Friday, we were talking about the issue of Thanksgiving, that one of the prohibitions, one of the reasons why we are prevented from celebrating Thanksgiving, Christmas, holidays, New Year's, all of these things, is because when it comes to celebrations, it's not permissible for the Muslims to resemble non-Muslims. We don't make it tashabbih with the kuffar as it relates to our celebrations. For every celebration that they have that's steeped in kufr, shirk, fisk, fahisha, dhulm, like 99% of what they do, the background of it, the origin of it is anti-Islamic. So even if a person's niyat is not to resemble them in that thing, they shouldn't do it, they should avoid it, because Allah doesn't like things like that. So if there is something that non-Muslims are specifically known by, we also can't resemble them in those things. If the non-Muslim is known by a particular thing, when you see it, hear it, when you see it, you think about the non-Muslim, that's also something that is haram. But if it's something that non-Muslims wear, eat, drink, how they dress, and it's not against our religion, then we can partake in that. But just to give an example, the Jewish people who wear those hats with the curls, Muslims can't dress like that. Can't dress like that. The Hindu lady putting a dot on your head, or those other marks that Hindus, Sikhs put on their head and their faces, Muslims can't do that. Those are things that they are specifically known by. Wearing a shirt like the priests. So we can't resemble mushrikeen, non-Muslims. We can't, whether they're Ahlul Kitab or straight up polytheists, nor can we in any shape, form, or fashion partake in those things which come from their holidays, whether it's religious or not. If the holiday is religious, haram, or if the holiday is steeped in kufr, shirk, fahisha, all of those issues have to be avoided. Another one of Allah's creation that we have been prohibited from resembling are animals. We've been prohibited from resembling animals. Generally, but what we want to talk about today, inshallah, is the prohibition of resembling animals while we pray. Just today in the Salat that I prayed, this was an issue. Just today, for Maghrib, for Isha, is an issue. Things that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us. Generally speaking, we should not resemble animals, generally speaking. But in the prayer, there are many animals that he warned us about imitating them. And sometimes we won't know these things, so we want to take this opportunity out to explain a few things, inshallah. First of all, as it relates to the creation of Bani Adam, we shall all feel and understand, as Allah mentioned in the Quran, لَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا Bani Adam. Allah mentioned that He has honored Adam and his children. All of this creation, He honored Bani Adam. Are they the best of the creation? Allah knows best. Are they the best, the best of the creation? Allah knows who's the best, what's the best. But they are from the best of the creation. As a species, As Allah Ta'ala mentioned, وَفَضَّلْنَاهُمْ عَلَى كَثِيرٍ مِّمَّنْ خَلَقْنَا تَفْضِيلًا. Verily, we have raised Bani Adam up and above and made them superior to a lot of those who we have created. But is Bani Adam, are they the best? Well, if you didn't like those kind of questions. Is Bani Adam, is Rasulullah better than the Arush, or is the Arush better? We don't find the companions asking those kinds of questions. Is the Malaika better than the human beings? Are the human beings better than the Malaika? We don't get deep into that. We just have to do our best to be the best people that we can possibly be. Allah Ta'ala mentioned in the Quran as well, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانِ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ لَأَسْفَلَ السَّافِلِينَ. We created Adam's children in the best way, being upright, walking on twos, his intellect, his ability to make decisions, to know what's right, what's wrong, the ability to worship Allah with a will. The person wants to make a mistake, he can. If he chooses not to make the mistake, this is a good thing that he would worship Allah like that. And the best taqweem. And then Allah reduced Bani Adam to the lowest of the low. The lowest of the low. The worst animals you could think of. The worst animals that you can think of. They've been reduced to that. When they make shirk, when their fitrah gets adulterated, gets contaminated, you'll find Bani Adam doing some really, really bad things, some really foul things. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us of the people who are ma'soomeen, and He protects and forgives us for the mistakes that we all make, inshallah. So from those lowest of the lows, number of ayat that Allah Ta'ala likened the kuffar of Quraysh and non-Muslims who reject the truth. He said, أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْغَافِلُونَ. Those people are like the cattle. They're even worse than the cattle. They're even worse than the cattle because they're ghafilun, like the cattle just goes around, he wants to eat, he wants to recreate, he just wants to rest. This is not why Allah created Bani Adam. And even with the animals, every creation has his mold and his way of making a tasbih and a dhikr. Rasulullah said, don't kill the rooster. But verily, the rooster will wake you up for prayer. Everything in creation has its own form of making dhikr of Allah and the tasbih. But we don't always know how they do that. So when Bani Adam doesn't worship Allah and he's not cognizant of why he's been created, he becomes even more astray than the animals. So what's being reduced to the lowest of the low? I think in most cultures, the lowest of the low is like the dog. Like the dog. Allah mentioned a lot of things about the dog in the Quran. One of the things he mentions, he made it similar to between the dog and a non-Muslim who doesn't, or the person who doesn't listen to advice, doesn't listen to dawah, doesn't listen to his own voice telling him, hey, do right, do right. This is a sign. Your time, at any time you could check out. And the person won't do right. He said in the Quran, إِن تَحْمِلْ عَلَيْهِ يَلْهَثْ أَوْ تَتْرُكُهُ يَلْهَثْ. That's what he mentioned about those people. He's like the dog. مَثَلُهُ كَمَثَلِ الْكَلْبِ إِن تَحْمِلْ عَلَيْهِ يَلْهَثْ أَوْ تَتْرُكُهُ يَلْهَثْ. If you give him dawah or you don't give him dawah, it's one and the same. If you invite him, if you warn him, if you encourage him, if you whatever, it's all the same to him. He's going to pant with his tongue out like the dog. We mentioned a few times in this masjid that the example of the one who gives a gift and he takes it back is like the example of the dog that vomits and he goes and eats his vomit. Those are examples of the Quran and the Sunnah making mention of the dog. And there are a lot of things you'll see, especially in the prayer. Don't do this like the dog, and don't do that like the dog, and don't do this one like the dog. And there are a lot of things. Also from the worst animals, it's the donkey. In every culture, the donkey is a problem. The donkey is a problem. So the donkey's been mentioned in the Quran, the donkey's been mentioned in the Sunnah, the donkey's been mentioned in the prayer. He said in the Quran, Inna ankar al-aswat la sawtul hamir. Verily, the worst voice to Allah is the voice of the donkey, the braying of the donkey, making that noise that he makes. He says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when the donkey sees a shaitan, that's the noise that he makes. It's his voice. So we don't want to be like the donkey. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار. The example of those people who were given the Torah, the Yahud, and they don't practice the Torah, their example is like the example of the donkey that carries on his back a spara, just has books, but it's not benefiting them. No matter what they say about being Allah's chosen people, doesn't benefit them. So there are a lot of animals. We want to take this opportunity out, inshallah, to remind you, even if you don't do it, to tell your kids about it and to inform your family members about it and to remember it. From those issues, and there are quite a few, is resembling the donkey or the camel. The Prophet told the people, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when you go into sajda, don't go into the sajda like the camel. In another hadith, he said, when you go into the sajda hands first and not on your knees. And this particular issue that there's a bona fide ikhtilaf between the scholars of Al-Islam, scholars of the Sunnah, and that some of them said that going down like the camel would be to go down on your hands first because that's what the camel does. So it's, I forgot that word, semantics. It's like semantics. Are the camel's legs, hind legs in the front or the back? There's some poetry that would suggest that his legs are opposite. And that's why some of those scholars took that position. But the majority of the ulama of al-hadith of the position that you should go down on your hands first. What's the reason why it happened? The Prophet was praying with his companion, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and when he went down in sajda and the people went down on their knees and they made a lot of noise, and you could hear the people going down like that. And then after the prayer, he turned around to him and he said, when you make sajda, don't go down like the donkey, meaning don't fall down on your knees first. The other issue, the second one, is what our mother Aisha, and this is quite common. Aisha, she asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about the ruling concerning people who, when they pray, they don't look at the position where they're going to make sajda, but they look to the right, to the left, they're looking around. She wanted to know what was the ruling. He told us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, inna dhalikum ash-shaytan yasriqu min salati ahadikum. People who do that, that's shaitan stealing from the person's prayer. So he starts off his prayer, if you can imagine, being 100%. If he's not thinking, it takes away from that. If he forgets and doesn't do something that's from the Sunnah, it takes away from that. Doing the things that are the Sunnah, although they're not wajib, they add on to your prayer. So the person goes into this prayer, he comes out, you can get 100% reward, 80%, 70%. There's a hadith that says that, but that hadith is not authentic. There's another hadith that says, when you pray in the Jama'at, from the virtues of praying in the Jama'at is Allah will reward the people who are praying based upon the one who had the best prayer. That's also, the hadith is not authentic. Although it's not authentic, you'll find the scholars explaining this hadith in the Sunan of Imam Abu Dawud and the Tirmidhi and other than that. So the point here is, the one who looks around, shaitan steals from him. But what's the animal specifically? Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, she said that the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam forbade us from doing 3 things in the prayer. He said, don't do 3 things in the prayer. The first one, you shouldn't peck like a hen. Pray very quickly. The second one, you shouldn't sit and squat like the dog, akramakum Allah. And the squatting, he called it iq'a al-kalb. Iq'a al-kalb. Number three, the person shouldn't look around in his prayer like a fox. Always looking around to see what's going on for whatever reason. Those three things is really important. First of all, concerning sitting down like the dog. There's a prohibition to sit like the dog in the prayer, and it's called al-iq'a. There are three meanings to this, and it's important that we get these. The first one is the one in which a person is praying. If you could pull your knees up for a minute, pull your knees up and put your hands back like this. And he sits like that in the prayer. That's an iq'a. Can't sit like that in a prayer. Put your hands on the floor again. Do it again. Madish. Yeah, like that. Don't balance yourself. Praying like that. Not permissible. The second type of prayer or meaning of al-iq'a is the person who sits down and his feet are up like this, but his backside is on the floor and his feet are up. Can you do that? Let's try. And you, yes, spread out. This is the second one that's not permissible. You shouldn't sit down on your backside, akramakum Allah, and it's touching the floor and you're between your two legs. You sit on your feet. Some of us can't sit on our feet according to the Sunnah, but whatever the case is, whatever works for you, don't sit like that. Both of those are prohibited. The third one is prohibited, and it's also from the Sunnah. The iq'a that is prohibited is when you sit on both of your heels when they're together. Do that for us. This right here is prohibited and is permissible. You can do this between the sajdatain, but doing the tashahhud, you shouldn't do this. Doing the tashahhud in the third rakat, in the fourth rakat, this should not be what you're doing. So whenever you're going to make the tashahhud, the first one or the second one, then you shouldn't sit like that. But Abdullah ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him, he brought hadith and he himself prayed like that. So when you do the sajda, you can sit up on your heels, go do sajda, sit up on your heels, you get up and do the whole prayer like that, but don't end up with the two tashahhud like that. So those are the iq'a. Very quickly, again, Rasulullah prohibited us from doing three things. One of them is pecking like the hen, praying very quickly just to get through the prayer. Number two, he mentioned sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, squatting like the dog. That's three things. Sitting with your heels up and your backside is on, always impermissible. Shouldn't do it. Number two, the iq'a is where you sit in the prayer on your backside and you're holding yourself up with your hands. And the third and final type of iq'a is the one that's permissible doing the prayer, but for the tashahhud, he said, don't do that sitting. The last and the third thing that he mentioned is what the bab is about. Looking around like the fox. He mentioned, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, it may be that the people who look around while they're praying, if they don't discontinue that, it may be that Allah will snatch their eyesight away. Which goes to show it's a big thing. It's a big thing. So the sunnah of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam is to look at the place of the sajda throughout the prayer. Even when the person is in ruku', he doesn't look between his legs. He looks at the place where he makes sajda. It's permissible to look around if there's a reason to cause you to look around. You're out somewhere and you're praying somewhere. You're in a parking lot. next to some water and you think an alligator is coming or something like that, it's permissible for you to look with what is ma'qul and what is reasonable. The next issue, Ikhwani, is the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he forbade us from praying and stretching our arms out on the ground, to the front, to the side, whether you're praying by yourself or you're praying with other people. In a number of ahadith, he said, don't pray where you stretch your arms out to the front, to the side, unnecessarily. Even if you're going to have your hands like that, don't put them all out like this unnecessarily. He said when he made sajda, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he opened up his arms just enough that a small sheep will be able to walk under his arms. That's praying by himself. But if you're praying and people are next to you, obviously you have to take that into consideration. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, adopt a moderate position while in sujood, and make sure that none of you stretches out his forearms on the ground. That's the meaning of that hadith. So in Sahih Muslim, we were told that Prophet Muhammad said he's been ordered to make sajda, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on 7 extremities. On the nose, and he pointed to his forehead, which is one bone. He counted this as one. To pray, make sajda on the palms of his hands, on his 2 knees, and on the atraf of his qadamain. So his toes should be on the ground and his heels should be together. That's the meaning of the hadith. Let each and every one of you pray in a moderate way. That your stomach shouldn't be stuck to your thighs. That your shins shouldn't be on the ground because your toes are out like this. That the arms are not out like that unnecessarily, or up forward like that, but to be moderate in all of those movements. He prohibited that, sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. In the narration of Aisha, she said that he forbid the people to spread out their arms on the ground as if one of them is a wild beast. And that wild beast was mentioned to be a dog. It was mentioned to be a dog or even other animals of prey. He, sallallahu alaihi wa sallam, in a hadith that adds on to that, he forbade us from pecking like a crow, resting one's forearms on the ground like a predator, like an animal that's the prey. You know how those cats walk? Cats and lions. You know how they walk when they be building down like that? So when a person is in sajda, his arm shouldn't be on the ground like that. His arm should be above. Again, 3 things. Pecking like a crow in this hadith. The other one said pecking like a hen. Resting one's forearms on the ground like a predator. And praying in the same place in the masjid like the camel. So these are 3 things. I want to ask you, brothers, pecking like a crow. Anybody know anywhere in the Quran or the Sunnah that the crow has been mentioned? Huh? Yeah, the crow. Yeah, the ghurab. Yeah. The crow, the black one. The black one. One of the brothers killed the other brother of Adam, and Allah sent a crow, and he was scratching the earth. And when he saw that, he said, woe was me. I couldn't be like this bird, this crow, to hide the dead body of my brother. Also, a hadith come prohibiting us from eating a crow. Crow is a nasty bird. He'll eat anything and everything. And I think that's why in the culture of the Europeans, the West, they always write these scary movies with the crows all the time. So that's the crow. He also mentioned, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, resting one's forearms on the ground like a predator. Like I mentioned, when the cat, those wild cats are gonna go and get the game and they're walking very slowly. So in the prayer, what it's talking about is don't pray with your hand on the ground. Don't pray with your forearms on the ground. And lastly, in this hadith, we've been prohibited from praying in the same place of the masjid like the camel. A person should move around in the masjid and not always make it his business to pray in the same place in the masjid. Does that mean he has to pray on the left side? Doesn't mean he has to pray on the left side. To always pray on the right side. But it shouldn't be his making a taklif, a takalluf. He's making an effort. This is the spot where he's going to pray. And even maybe put something out. And if someone prays there, it can be a problem. He may say something. He may look at people. So we don't resemble the camel in that way. The companion, Jabir ibn Samura, may Allah be pleased with him, he said that we used to pray behind the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if someone would come into the masjid and they would give us greetings, we would greet them back by raising our hands and waving to him. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asked the people one day after prayer, Ma balu ha'ulai alladhina yarmuna bi aydihim ka'annaha adnab al-khayl ash-shumus. What is wrong that some of you in the prayer, you are raising your hands as if your hands are the tails of wild horses? And then he went on to say, Ama yakfi li ahadikum, is it not enough for one of you that when you're praying and your brother comes to your right, that you tap your thigh to give him salams, and the one on your left, that you tap your left thigh to give him salams? They said that when Prophet Muhammad used to pray, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Bilal would come in, anyone come in and give him salams, he would have his hands like that, and then he would make ishara like this. They said as if maybe he was shaking their hands, but he would like that. He wouldn't do like this multiple times one time. They said his hand would be like this. That this part of the hand was facing down and this part was facing up. And it's without any taklif. It doesn't have to be, all precise. Someone came in, they said salams, you did like that, shook your head. The important thing is him giving us salams is from the Sunnah. One person responds to him, that's enough. That's enough. That's enough. One person responds, but if multiple people respond, it's no problem. Again, if the person is next to you, you can acknowledge that from the hadith. He said, by tapping yourself on the right thigh, on your left, tapping yourself on the left thigh. If the person comes in, he shouldn't say salams with a loud voice. He shouldn't scream out salams, shouldn't scream it out. He should say salams with a voice that's low, but the people can hear it. He didn't allow people to read the Quran when they disturb each other. They're reading the Quran and you're reading the Quran and you're competing, and your recitation and his recitation disturbing the people who are praying. And that's the book of Allah. So all of that should be done in a moderate fashion, in a moderate way. All right? Again, in this hadith, waving of the hands and moving the hands unnecessarily, he described it as being like the tails of wild horses, because the companions at that time, they were a bit exaggerated due to it being new at the beginning. And then the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wasallam, he rectified that. Last thing that we want to mention, Ikhwani, is this thing about giving salams. Again, our deen is the deen where if we have proof for these things, we do them, and we don't have any problem with someone doing it. If you don't want to do it, then that's between you and Allah, but we shouldn't make inkar and say that this is not from the Sunnah, or this is not from our madhab. Clearly, Allah's Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave people salams when he was praying, clearly, and the companions after him. And Allah mentioned that in the Quran as well. فَإِذَا دَخَلْتُمْ بَيُوتًا فَسَلِّمُوا عَلَى أَنفُسِكُمْ. That's the little that the scholars of Ahlul Hadith, in addition to that sunnah of him showing the people, Allah said, if you enter into your homes, then make and give salams to yourselves. So the masjid is a bait from the bayut of Allah Azza wa Jal, and the masjid has also been described as being the house of the believer as well. The house of the believer as well. So it's something that we don't have any problem with practicing and claiming it's from the Sunnah. Even if people don't want to do it, and if they say it's not from their madhab, it's definitely from what the Prophet did. Sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam. Okay, Akhwani, we're going to stop here, inshallah. You brothers have any questions you want to add on to this, feel free. إذا كان عندكم شيء فليتفضل. Yeah, the hadith said, don't kill the rooster. He said, don't kill the rooster because he wakes you up for salat. The deek, don't kill him. Nah, you can eat him, but you yeah, because it's putting the emphasis on even the dafda as well. You said that when that frog does what he does, he's making the tasbih of Allah Azza wa Jal. Can we kill the rooster to eat it? We could kill the rooster to eat it. We could kill the rooster to eat it. But what we should do is, Sheikh, go to Islam Q&A, Islam Q&A, and just put in Hukum Qatl al-Dik, or Illa Adam Qatl al-Dik. What's the Illa? What's the hikmah? Fadl ya Sheikh. Now, I don't know about that. Maybe it could be someone here or there, but we know that the sunnah is when people come into a majlis and assembly, they should give salams. And when they leave, they should give salams. So someone can have a particular issue with that, but that's not from what the Prophet did, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He encouraged people, when you come in, give the salam. When you go out, give the salam. And when you're coming in, that salam is not more important than the second one. They're both equal in their emphasis and their significance. ماذا وجدت يا شيخ؟ Anybody else? Anybody else?